Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2008 direct-to-video made-for-television film Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh. Now, I actually saw this when it debuted on Nickelodeon, like when it premiered on Nick. And even when I was younger, I thought this kind of sucked. And that was at a time when I was a fan of Drake and Josh. So I wasn't really looking forward to revisiting this, and yeah, it didn't hold up. I tried to give it a fair shot, but it just is something that I didn't really care for. For the most part, I thought it was pretty unfunny, full of a lot of cringy, outdated 2000s kids humor, and I just thought it was pretty lazy and full of cliches and honestly more boring than it was entertaining to watch. Uh, but before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, I would like to give a special shout out to Bronson for requesting another review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh is directed by Michael Grossman. Now, Michael Grossman is a guy who did assistant directing work for films like the 1990 Ninja Turtles film, as well as the late 80s slasher Hide and Go Shriek. Prior to this, he actually directed a couple things, including Two Heads Are Better Than None, the Keenan and Kel film, which was one of Nickelodeon's first television specials featuring some of their sitcom characters. And his direction in this, it's very mid. It's not really anything incredible, but it's not a gross misuse of the camera either. So it's one of those things where, yeah, the guy doesn't showcase a gross amount of talent, but he also isn't a director who is just totally incompetent either. The direction is competent enough. He sets up his shots in a way that's decently framed. There's some all right usage of pans or zooms or wide shots at points. In fact, there are some shots that actually do make it look a little bit more cinematic and not like an average episode of Drake and Josh. So it doesn't necessarily look like it's just an extended episode of the show. I think it has a little bit more to it visually than that, but it's still not anything really that special, though. It's not like this is a very talented director who is just held back by the material that he's working with. This is a director who is on par with the majority of other made for TV or sitcom directors that were working in the industry at the time. This is the kind of guy who, okay, we need somebody for this job. Are you available? Can you operate a camera? Here you go. And I think probably the fact that he did the Keenan and Kel movie definitely did give him a leg up with Nickelodeon. And honestly, I think he did a little bit better of a job with that film. But I think also that movie is just a better film. Like, there's more for him to work with directing wise with that than what he has to do here, or what he has to utilize in terms of what's in this script. Now, the film is written by Dan Schneider. Yeah, I don't blame you if you threw up a little bit in your mouth hearing that. Uh, and Dan Millar, not Dan Milaro, Stephen Milaro. There's only one Dan involved here with this script, not two. And this script is not very good. It's very cliched. It's very uninspired. The Christmas stuff is the kind of thing you've seen a million times in a million other movies about generic platitudes and messages about the Christmas spirit and what Christmas is all about and Christmas traditions. As a Drake and Josh story, it's also pretty weak, especially because of the fact that it does what a really lazy script normally does, where it just makes things go back to square one because it's easier to do. So it just makes this whole story feel like it's very throwaway. And on top of that, it doesn't really fit within in the continuity of the show. This honestly seems like something that would have aired before the two-part season finale, but that's not what happened. So it just feels very disconnected with the rest of the show as a result. It's not a proper send-off for it being the final episode or the final product for the series that was produced. And also, this script is way off tonally. There are certain jokes, there are certain ways that the characters are written that just feels just off compared to the rest of the show. And so if you're a fan of Drake and Josh, like this doesn't work in that context either. Cause they're like, wait a second, this just doesn't really have the same vibe or feel to it as the majority of the show does. And just off the bat, it's just off. I mean, you have this whole stuff with Josh doing the typical Josh stick, a shtick, if I can speak. So he's got this typical stuff that he does where he's flipping out. He's struggling with a simple task, which in this instance is trying to, I guess, uh, put a inflatable snowman on a stake in his front yard. I don't know why, but okay, he's trying to do that. And then Megan shows up and cuts the rope and the snowman flies into the air and Josh is chasing after it. And of course he's got to go and, give Megan crap, Megan, the typical sort of stuff that you see from Josh. And Drake is still trying to be suave and still trying to get all the ladies and being selfish. And there's this really uncomfortable, weird scene where Drake is dressed up as Santa Claus because he's doing something for his the boss, who works at the movie theater, uh, Helen, and he's doing this thing where I guess it was his turn to be Santa Claus that year, so he's Santa Claus, and Josh is Santa's sack, and Drake is just kissing random women, random young girls who decide to sit on his lap. But of course, he only kisses the hot ones. There's this girl who's not very hot and is overweight and fat, and she tries to kiss him and he gets freaked out and then he runs away and then this fat girl chases after him. While he's being chased by this fat girl, he gets stopped by this cute little girl named Mary Alice who asks him to provide her and her foster family with the best Christmas ever. He agrees to do it because it's a Christmas promise and he's not going to break that promise. And then Drake has a party on top of the movie theater later that night where he sings Jingle Bells with his band, and it seems like it's a huge hit. But for some reason, a bunch of randos show up and start crashing the party. Josh, of course, is there at the party trying to have a good time. And then he tries to put a stop to these guys who are crashing the party, but he can't do it on his own. So he winds up calling the cops. Then something just unforeseen and absolutely ridiculous happens, even for the context of the show, where now all of a sudden Josh just gets arrested by the cops. The cops show up and they just immediately look at Josh and arrest him because everybody starts to scatter and the people who are trying to crash the party scatter along with everyone else. And it's not even one of those things where you're arrested for underage drinking or something. Like, or, like, did you set up this party? Is this your party, sir? And he was like, yeah. Uh, are you, or do you have a liquor license? No. How old are you? How old are these kids? 17. You're under arrest. Like, there's not even anything like that. It's just, you're arrested. You're now arrested, Josh, and now you're going to jail. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Through some kind of shenanigans, he also falls into the back of a pickup truck, and there's a bit of a very short chase with the cops, and then he eventually gets captured again by the police. And then, even though he's a minor, he gets put into general population, complete with an orange jumpsuit. And then he's in a cell with this guy named Bludge. And the tone of this scene is another instance of just how tonally off this script is. Like, you get the vibe that Josh is about to get prison raped. You really get that vibe at points. And I'm like, that's not a good vibe for Drake and Josh. And the writers are definitely insinuating a little bit of that. But all that happens is he fakes getting his ass kicked by Bludge so Bludge can keep his prison cred. And then Drake tries to break him out of jail, but in typical Drake and Josh fashion, the plan goes horribly awry, and Drake winds up getting arrested too. So now Drake and Josh are on trial. The judge, because of what happened with Helen, uh, essentially guilt tripping the judge to be easy on them, despite the very serious crime of Drake trying to break his brother out of prison. He agrees to allow them to be free if they can fulfill this Christmas promise for Mary Alice and her foster family. And if they fail, then they will go back to jail. I'm like, okay, all right. If the foster family was more likable and there was more to these characters of these foster kids, then I think maybe this might have worked better for me. But I hated the majority of this foster family. Mary Alice was fine, even though she was basically just a walking, talking sugar plum, that kind of thing. Just sugary sweet, so much so that it makes your teeth ache. But she wasn't annoying about it, though. The rest of the kids were just annoying. You got this foreign kid who can't speak English, and he's not speaking any language that anybody can understand. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Gleeb glob and phoebe and flop 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 and blee 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 and just whatever the hell. Just nonsense. And there's this other kid named Trey who's just doing bad stand-up routines or just asking too many questions or just being really annoying. And these two twin sisters that are just fighting each other all the time and are just being loud and obnoxious. And then you have the older teen foster kid who's tasked with watching these kids when the father's away. And this guy is just a stuck-up prick who's just the type of guy who thinks he's too cool for everything and is just the typical sort of character that you want to punch in the face. Like the kind of guy that would be like the bully in a show like this, but we're supposed to sympathize with him or grow to like him, but it never happens because of the way that this character is written. Um Luke. So yeah, you got Luke, the stuck-up prick. You got Lily and Violet, the terror twins. You got Trey, who is just tremendously annoying with his questions and his bad stand-up. Zigfee with his just random nonsense language, and Mary Alice. And Drake and Josh are also being followed around by this parole officer. And this parole officer character, his name is Perry. And this guy, he just hates Christmas. And because of that, he's trying to do everything he can to stop Drake and Josh from making this foster family's Christmas the best ever. He's a constant thorn in their side. They trick Megan into helping them, but she eventually figures out that they lied to her about this oboe. And so then she stops helping them. So now it's up to them to try to get this guy off their back. And they find out through Perry's mom that when he was a kid, he really wanted a chimpanzee, and his parents actually got him a chimp. And then he went, I think it was like Christmas Eve, and he went to go see the chimp. And the chimp got out of the cage, and it completely went crazy, and then it peed all over him. And then that's why he hates Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, I could kind of see that, but at the same time, what were you expecting? What do you think was going to happen when you got a wild animal? Like, I mean, what? And like the way that that whole scene is shot, by the way, and the way that it's written is just another instance of total whiplash, because it honestly looks like something straight out of a horror movie. It's like, what is this, Link? Is this Monkey Shines? I thought this was Drake and Josh. I thought this was the Merry Christmas Drake and Josh. But you have this whole thing with the chimpanzee, and then because of the fact that the chimp ruined his Christmas and he hates Christmas, Drake and Josh decide to do a nice deed and get him a sweet chimp. And that causes him to have a complete change of character, because of course it does. But despite that, Drake and Josh fail initially to give these kids the best Christmas ever, despite their best efforts, which honestly, their best efforts were pathetic. Uh, you know, Josh with this whole thing where he's trying to get the kids to bake Christmas cookies and decorate them themselves, and it just turns into chaos. Or the bit where he's trying to get them to, cut down a tree and make their own ornaments. And of course, that backfires. You have this whole thing that seems like it's promising where they get the kids and even stuck up prick Luke to sing some Christmas carols with Drake with his guitar, and they are now happy to sing at the Christmas parade, but then the parole officer comes in and gets Crazy Steve, who has a bigger role in this, and that's not a good thing because he's just a one note character. He's just crazy and yells stupid things, and he doesn't know how to think clearly, so it leads to him getting manipulated by the parole officer to reveal that Drake and Josh are only helping them because if they don't give them the best Christmas, they're going to go back to jail. And of course, that has a whole thing where there's a falling out. And then Drake and Josh try to make up for it by providing snow, but they're two brain dead morons. So they decide to do that by using a wood chipper and ice, and it just turns into a disaster of epic proportions that becomes absolutely devastating for the foster kids' home and the neighborhood, because it's just shooting chunks of ice everywhere. And of course, they think, all right, we failed. We're going back to jail. There's a fake out moment where, oh, they are, but it was all set up by the parole officer to lead them back home, where all the foster kids are there now, and they've put up a tree, and now they've had the best Christmas ever for some reason. and Blood shows up and breaks through the chimney and starts handing out presents. And it's insinuated that now Helen's going to be with him. And now everything is good. The vote is cast in terms of whether or not the kids had their best Christmas ever, and they all say yes. And I'm honestly scratching my head as to why. Oh, because we were able to have this great Christmas at your house and blah blah blah. And I'm like, it was fun, and you tried to make it snow, and then they actually do make it snow because Crazy Steve makes it snow with cheese with the wood chipper. Oh, and I forgot about Drake and Josh's parents when they went on this vacation to some tropical island. And the reason why I forgot about that is because it's an entirely forgettable subplot. It's predictable and bland and boring. Oh, they go to the island, and instead of tropical paradise, they're stuck in this hut on a bad part of the island, and now they have to deal with a hurricane, and everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong, and then they decide to swim away and go back home. So it's like that was a nothing subplot anyway. They didn't really add that much to the movie to begin with. So there's a reason why I forgot to mention it. But yeah, even as like a send off to the show, it's just not really that great. It's very underwhelming. Very underwhelming send off if this was the intention for this to be like, "Oh, this is it. We're going to wrap up everything with this movie." It honestly seems like that wasn't the intention. Like they were going to do another one. And it honestly had good enough ratings to do another one, but I guess, Drake Bell and Josh Peck, they moved on to other things and didn't want to do it. So, yeah, the script it's not good. And there's also a lot of really out of place adult humor, like a joke about a scooter seat being too vibrating, vibrating too hard. Oh, this scooter seat vibrates too hard. And it's a scooter that Drake and Josh borrowed from a friend of theirs, and it was that friend's sister's scooter. Like, that's the kind of stuff as a kid you definitely aren't going to notice, but as an adult, it's pretty glaringly obvious what they were trying to do there. And I don't remember a lot of Drake and Josh episodes having a lot of that kind of humor. And there's other stuff too. It's a little mean spirited, even for Drake and Josh. And there's just a lot of stuff in the script that just is not good. And it definitely makes the film not very good as a result. The cast, they're trying. I mean, Drake Bell and Josh Peck, they still have that chemistry that they've always had. Um, and they're still doing the pratfalls and the shtick and everything, and it sometimes works, other times it doesn't. I don't really blame them. I blame the script more. Miranda Cosgrove, you can tell that she's pretty much done with this franchise. She phones it in here in her small role as Megan. Um, Jerry Traynor, he shot this around the same time as he was shooting iCarly, and I like his character a lot more in that. Crazy Steve was crazy, but wasn't funny, and it's not Jerry's fault. I mean, there's not much you could do with the material that is given to work with to make it funny. Um, Audrey Parker Nichols as um Audrey Parker Nichols, played by Nancy Sullivan. Uh, you know, she was fine. So was Jonathan Goldstein as Walter. They were the parents. Drake and Josh's parents. Uh, Allison Scagliotti is Mindy. She was barely even in the movies. There's not really a whole lot to say about her. Same thing goes for, the rest of the cast, like Eric Blonowitz is Scott, and Greg Ramirez is Alec, or Gavin Mitchell is Jake, or Miss Hafer or Julia Duffy as Miss Hafer. By the way, I got them mixed up. Eric Blonowitz is played by Scott Halberstadt. Craig Ramirez is played by Alec Medlock. Gavin Mitchell is played by Jake Farrow. Of course, you have Yvette Nicole Brown playing Helen Dubois. She wasn't too bad. The foster kids, other than Mary Alice's actress, Bailey Madison, who I remember from Wizards of Waverly Place. She was like Maxine in a few episodes, like when the brothers, or actually I think it was the sister and the brother, they accidentally turned Max into a girl, and so it was Maxine for a few episodes. I remember her from that. She's also been in other stuff. Um, Luke Johansson as Devin Gray. I mean, his performance was just really nothing. Just he gave nothing. It was that whole like, I'm too cool, man. I'm too cool for this movie. I'm too cool for school. Too cool for Drake and Josh. Um, that kind of acting, which is non-acting, really. And the rest of the kids, like Camille Goldstein, Cosette Goldstein playing the twins, they were annoying. I think maybe they were supposed to be that way. Same thing goes for David Wilson as Trey, David Gore as Zigfee, Kimbo Slice. It was kind of fun to see him, but also it just seemed way out of place. Henry Winkler, he's a legend, and he did the best he possibly could with a very small cameo as the judge. David Pressman as the officer, the parole officer. So like, yeah, the performances across the board for a made for video direct to television movie, not the worst ever, but really not anything that great either. And other elements like the cinematography by Marvin V. Rush, pretty rushed, pretty uneventful. The editing by Charles Bornstein, Mark Lamp here. You're not really going to hear a lot of praise from me when it comes to the editing for this. And it's like 94 minutes, but it drags because there's not really a whole reason. There's really not much of a reason to care. Oh, I really care that Drake and Josh give these foster kids who are mostly annoying the best Christmas ever. I really don't care. I really don't give a shit. And it almost gets to the point where, like, can you just throw them back in jail? Maybe just make this a Drake and Josh go to prison movie, and then have them team up with Ernest. Drake and Josh go to jail. But no, that's not what you get. Instead, it's just a really generic, forgettable holiday special. That's what this is. And it is absolutely not worth $200 plus on eBay for the pressed made on demand DVD. If you pay that price for this film or anything more than $10 or $15 for that DVD, you are a sucker. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.